Pyramid building in ancient Egypt had its big bang at Saqqara in the 3rd dynasty with a genius named Imhotep, who served as chancellor to King Necropolis, better known as Djoser. Djoser not only placed his mortuary complex, which was intended for the king's Kai spirit to use in the afterlife, at the site of Saqqara, a different location from his predecessors, but the complex he developed with Imhotep would impact all royal memorial monuments made after his. While the complex had many innovations, among the most important are that it was the first mortuary structure in stone, the first stepped pyramid instead of a single mastaba, a flat rectangular tomb form, and the first to combine both mortuary and ritual buildings, and to pair functional buildings with dummy ones that couldn't actually be used. The move to Saqqara, Djoser's royal predecessors had created large memorial complexes at the ancient site of Abydos, further to the south. These consisted of a huge rectangular mud brick enclosure with towering walls decorated with an elaborate pattern of rectangular recesses and a subterranean tomb about 3.2 kilos to the southwest, towards an opening in the high desert cliffs that was believed to be the entrance to the netherworld. Djoser chose instead to place his mortuary complex at the site of Saqqara, where the burials of some earlier local rulers and elite already existed. These earlier burials at Saqqara included elaborate niched facades and subterranean chambers that may have served as models or inspiration. However, the architectural importance of Djoser's complex cannot be overstated. There were multiple innovations that had a significant impact on all royal memorial monuments that followed. For Djoser's complex, a rectangular section of desert was delineated by boundary stela, a massive trench, and a wall containing an area of 37 acres. Inside this substantial enclosure was a series of structures, courtyards, underground tunnels, and chapels in addition to the stepped pyramid that visually dominates the space. Although built of stone, many of the forms and architectural elements within this complex, from the design of the enclosure walls to the shapes of the columns, were based on and often directly mimic structures built from perishable materials. The step pyramid complex is a striking example of the transitory, made permanent on a massive scale because of the shift from mud brick and other perishable materials to stone. There is evidence that some structures were partially buried almost immediately upon their completion. This type of ritual burial was also known from Abydos, and perhaps signifies the hidden aspect of life after death, where successive layers of each building concealed earlier ones and eventually led to the emergence of new life. The ideal cycle of eternal renewal in ancient Egyptian conception required burial as part of the process. By burying these ritual structures, the Egyptians believed that they, and their associated rejuvenating rituals, became available for the use of the deceased king in the afterlife, and remained conceptually accessible to him forever in that realm. At Djoser's complex, the shift to building entirely with stone shows a desire to provide an even better guarantee of eternal availability. For the first time, the material used was not mud brick, but instead carefully cut stone. Domestic structures for the living and even palaces for the kings had been, and would continue to be, constructed of organic, more temporary materials like reeds, mud brick, and wood. However, from this point on, royal memorial constructions, like temples and tombs, would be made of stone. The combination of both mortuary and ritual structures in the same complex was another of Djoser and Imhotep's innovations. Previously at Abydos, the king's tomb and the royal enclosures used for enacting rituals related to that ruler were physically separated by an expanse of open desert. There is also a mix within the step pyramid enclosure of functional and dummy buildings. The functional structures were probably used in the conduct of actual rituals during the king's lifetime and funerary rites after his death. Dummy buildings are, as they sound, solid structures behind a facade that were apparently intended for the Ka's use in the afterlife. Djoser and his groundbreaking complex were honored thousands of years after his death. His chancellor and the architectural mastermind behind the complex, Imhotep, he who comes in peace, was also memorialized for the magnificent monument he designed for his ruler. Imhotep was highly respected for his wisdom and was later deified, which was very rare for non-royal individuals. Even thousands of years after his death, Imhotep was still revered. In the 3rd century BCE, a priest named Manetho wrote one of the earliest histories of Egypt. In it, he specifically credits Imhotep with the invention of building in stone. His reputation as a wise man and healer eventually led the Greeks to associate him with Asclepius, the god of medicine, and his worship continued. Now, let us journey into one of the tombs at Saqqara. As we leave the bright desert sun behind and descend into stone, we enter a space built not for the living, but for eternity. These tombs were created to preserve memory, status, belief, and the soul itself, carefully designed to carry the deceased into the next world. The walls around us are not silent. They are filled with meaning, with images, carvings, and symbols that reflect how the ancient Egyptians understood death, rebirth, and the divine order of the universe. At Saqqara, every passage and chamber reminds us that this was not simply a place of burial, but a sacred landscape of transition, where the boundary between this life and the next was carefully prepared in stone. As we venture into the tomb of King Unas, the outside world begins to disappear behind us. The noise, the heat, and the open sky give way to shadow, stillness, and stone. The entrance feels like a threshold between two worlds, the world of the living above and the hidden world of eternity below. Before the carved texts reveal themselves and before the sarcophagus comes into view, there is this moment of descent, a quiet passage inward, deeper into one of ancient Egypt's most sacred spaces. Now we step into the tomb of King Unas at Saqqara, one of the most haunting and extraordinary chambers in ancient Egypt. Deep within the pyramid, a single massive sarcophagus rests in silence, surrounded by walls covered in sacred carvings, meant to guide the king beyond death. These inscriptions, known as the pyramid texts, transform the chamber into far more than a place of burial. They make it a gateway to the afterlife. Above, the ceiling is covered in stars, creating the image of an eternal night sky hidden beneath the desert itself. It is a powerful and mysterious vision, a king buried deep underground, yet placed symbolically beneath the heavens. In the tomb of Unas, architecture, ritual, and cosmic symbolism come together to create one of the clearest and most unforgettable expressions of ancient Egyptian immortality. At the center of the chamber rests the great basalt sarcophagus of King Unas, dark, massive, and built with a sense of permanence that still dominates the space today. Its power does not come from elaborate decoration, but from its sheer scale, weight, and presence. This is the final resting place prepared for the king, a monument of stone within a monument of stone. Silent and immovable, the sarcophagus stands as the physical heart of the tomb, embodying the ancient Egyptian desire for endurance, protection, and eternity. As we emerge from the tomb of King Unas, we leave behind one of the most powerful burial chambers in ancient Egypt, but our journey through Saqqara is only beginning. Out here in the vast desert necropolis, every structure, every shaft, and every stone has another story to tell. And now, our path leads us toward one of the most iconic monuments ever built, the Step Pyramid of Djoser. Soon, we will stand before the pyramid that marked a turning point in human history, and then journey inside to explore the hidden passages and sacred spaces carved deep within it. Saqqara continues to reveal itself step by step, monument by monument, mystery by mystery. And as this journey continues, there is so much more still to uncover. These videos take a long time to create, so your support through liking, commenting, and subscribing truly means the world to us here at Megalith Alignments.